Um, Thank you very much, Toke, and I'd really like to thank the Keynes Fund for providing funding for this project. And we got funded at very short notice and very rapidly, and it was important for what we were doing that we had the funds in place very quickly. There are actually two papers that are going to come out of this project, and the first one is published already, and that wouldn't have been possible to do if we hadn't got the funding extremely quickly. So that paper was on expert opinions, where the experts were doctors, and they were advising about vaccines and whether to take the vaccine. And we wanted to do that at a time of uncertainty before people had really started taking the vaccine. So that we were administering that experiment around November time last year. At the same time, we were also exploring the opinions of expert economists and how that influenced people's beliefs, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So this is joint work with Marina Agronoff at Caltech and Pietro Ortoleva at Princeton. Okay, so I think we've all seen throughout the pandemic that there are important needs for the government to coordinate people's actions and to issue advice and to get people to follow that advice. So we've seen the governments issue guidelines on staying at home, on social distancing, on wearing face masks, and so on. And getting people to follow that advice has been really important for slowing the spread of COVID. If you even go to the models that have been fed into advising the government on decisions to make, those models incorporate a parameter for how carefully guidance is followed by people. And a big worry was that people would get fed up of following the advice, and over time that their willingness to follow advice would fall down, and that would lead to problems. So the government policy was important. This information was an important part of the response to the pandemic, and in order to issue that advice, the governments lent on experts and experts' views. They used experts to add credibility to the things that they were telling the public, and across many countries there were frequent press briefings where there'd be the leader of the country and an expert supporting the position of the leader of the country. And there were costly information campaigns that went along with them, not to mention the cost of the leader's time in order to try and just communicate these messages. So we think these kind of advertising campaigns, advice issuing campaigns are important, and we want to understand how effective they're going to be. And pressing against that is the kind of folk knowledge or folk opinion that experts' views are not being trusted so much. And so in recent times, the trust in experts has been eroded. And you can think of many anecdotal things that support this. One is one famous one in the UK is a quote from Michael Gove, who was then Lord Chancellor, and this was in the run-up to Brexit. So he said, "I think people of this country have had enough of experts." Sorry, I can't quite. Experts with organizations and acronyms saying what they know, saying that they know what is best and getting it consistently wrong. And so these are the opinions that are being communicated to people in the country, and you're undermining the credibility of experts that the government wants to lean on in times like COVID. And at the same time, you've got Donald Trump in America, who's not only undermining experts, but also undermining news outlets and platforms that experts can use to get across views. So in this context, we want to know how effective are government information policies that lean on experts. Are experts trusted or not? Can we provide some systematic evidence on that? Okay, and so in order to do this, we run an online experiment. And the way we do that is we take a quasi-representative sample of the US population. So we stratify by age, by gender, by education, and by income, based on the 2018 America Community Survey. And then with those people, we ask them to predict whether they think unemployment will go up or down in the next month. So we administered this in November last year, and we asked the question soon after the data for October had been released, and we told them what happened in, what the unemployment rate was in October, and then we said in November, when the data is released, do you think it's going to go up or down? And they told us what they thought, and they told us a confidence. So we gave them a number between 0 and 100, and they had to tell us, what do you think the chances are you're correct? And hopefully they chose more than 50, because if they chose less than 50, they should really have chosen the other option. They should have said it was going down instead of up, or up instead of down. And just as a test that they're paying attention, the vast majority chose 50 or more. The participants were then told that we were doing the same exercise with experts. So these were practitioner economists. So we stayed away from academic economists. Their views about academic economists that might undermine their credibility, or some parts of the population might have views that could undermine their credibility. And we focused just on economists that work for organizations like the World Bank, the IMF, the Bank of England, and the Federal Reserve. So these are people who have, as part of their job, understanding unemployment and inflation and these things, and have an informed opinion about what's going to happen. And so we said we'd go ask these economists exactly the same question we'd ask them, and we collect their predictions. And then we told the participants that if it turns out, after we've asked these experts, that 90% or more of them disagree with you, would you like to change your opinion? Would you like to change your answer and instead follow the expert view? And the participants are incentivized. If they gave a correct prediction, they get rewarded. They get, some of them are selected at random and given an extra $10. And then we did so that's kind of the basic treatment. And then we varied a couple of things. So instead of experts, we would say we'd ask them whether they'd like to follow the views of other participants. So instead of taking, say, 100 experts' views and aggregating them, we are going to take a random sample of 100 of the participants we have and aggregate those, and you can follow those instead if you want. And then we also varied whether we would ask them about what was going to happen with unemployment versus what was going to happen with inflation. So the reason for doing that is that we thought that unemployment might be a bit more of a political issue. You had a kind of divide in the US between Republicans who were more bullish on the economy and Democrats who were more skeptical. And so inflation and unemployment figures were in the press a lot. They were talked about a lot. On the other hand, inflation at that time wasn't a big issue. People weren't talking about it very much. It had been stable for a long time. These days, it's become more of a political issue. But if you go back a year, then it wasn't so much. And so we wanted to see whether there was a difference between unemployment and inflation based on that. And then the final thing that we varied is whether we said there were 90% of experts who disagreed with them, would they want to change their mind, versus there are 60% of experts or more that disagree with them, would they want to change their mind. Okay, and so the first thing that you can think about is, how often do people actually change their mind? So if you've come up with the prediction, you think unemployment is going to go down, but you learn that 90% or more of the experts think actually it's going to go up. Do you decide to change your mind and follow their prediction, or do you stick to your guns and you say, no, I know better, unemployment's going to go down? So it turns out that 24% of people are willing to follow experts. 24% of people in the population will change their mind in that case. That's when 90% or more of experts disagree on unemployment. When 60% or more of experts disagree, it makes very little difference. Now 21% instead of 24% would change their minds. And when you ask them about other people in the survey, their views, kind of the wisdom of the crowd, we're going to ask all these people, maybe on average they might have different information that you aggregate and do well. Sanjeev's going to talk about that in a certain sense later. And so you might think that the peers could be effective as well. That's not effective either, and less effective than experts. So only 14% of people will follow the random sample of 100 people from the representative sample of the US population. When it's 90% disagreeing with them. And when it's 60% disagreeing with them, it's a similar number, so 15% or 16%. So these numbers are really low. There is a difference between unemployment and inflation, but even the inflation numbers are very low. So even when 90% of experts disagree on inflation, still only 34% of people will change their minds. Okay, so inflation is something that people don't have a strong prior about, because we ask them about their confidence, and that people aren't extremely confident about their inflation guesses. They're more confident about their unemployment guesses, and still only 34% will change their mind. Okay. So next, very basic question you can ask is who listens to experts, who follows the experts? And there's a big difference between different demographics. So the group that is most likely to listen to experts is young, highly educated Democrats. And in that case, 40% of them will change their mind. But still, 40% is not a huge number, although it's much higher than if you're a not so young, low educated Republican, in which case only 12% will change their mind on unemployment. Inflation is a bit better. Now we get up to almost 50%. So if we can pick the right demographic and the right topic, we can get up to around 50% of people changing their mind. But still, we think this is remarkably low. At this point, if you go back to the previous slide, there's not really much difference between when 90% disagree and when 90% or more disagree versus when 60% or more disagree. So the figures on this table pull those cases together. Okay, so the overall picture here is one in which people are really not following experts at all. And we think that that's fundamentally important for governments and for governments trying to implement information policies that we talked about. And I haven't got it here, but I'll mention it quickly. The numbers that we got for similar, it's a slightly different experiment, but similar questions in the case of doctors and vaccines, they were similar. It's still only about 1 in 5 people that will change their opinion. So if you tell people, are you going to take the vaccine? They say no, and they say, oh, we've asked 100 doctors and people with MD qualifications whether they're going to take the vaccine, and more than 90% say they are. Does that change your mind to take the vaccine? Only 1 in 5 change their mind there as well. So it's not a phenomena that's confined just to economists. This is also a problem that goes to other experts and other experts that matter in these situations. Okay, and now let me tie this. So these are the kind of the main results of this exercise, which we think are striking. This isn't where we started out. This isn't what we set out to try and show. So when we started this project, we wanted to see whether we could use ideas from the economics literature on Bayesian persuasion to try and improve how many people are listening to experts, or to make the government advice more effective. So could we tweak the information that we're giving in kind of clever ways that would give you more oomph for your policy, rather than just revealing exactly what experts said. So in that world, you would very carefully choose your threshold. You choose whether it was 95% of experts you follow, or it's 90% of experts disagree, or it's 85%. And it would be about calibrating that level and seeing whether you could do that to get large gains. And we've seen here, there's no really difference between 90% and 60% of experts. Well, there's very little difference there. And so you're not getting, it's not the first order question in these situations. So the thing we set out to study turned out not to be, I think, a first order determinant of how effective these information policies are going to be. What's much more fundamental and what's much more first order is just whether people will follow experts and whether people have trust in experts. And we found the numbers that we got strikingly low. And this is a short paper, and that's really the main messages of it.